The Silent Terror of Dyatlov Pass, What Truly Happened on Kholat Syakhl. An examination of the unsolved mystery, based on official investigation records, 1959. They left university campus with optimism, sturdy gear, and the thrill of conquering the icy peaks of the Urals. They were skilled. They were prepared. Yet, beneath the vast, unforgiving blanket of the Siberian night, they were stripped bare of everything: their clothes, their composure, and ultimately, their lives. The 9 hikers who vanished on Kholat Syakhl did not merely succumb to the cold, they fled from a terror so absolute that they voluntarily chose hypothermia over whatever awaited them inside their own tent. This is the chilling chronology of the Dyatlov Pass Incident, a true story that remains a scar on the history of exploration, hinting at forces that defy both logic and survival. Act 1, The Descent into the Unknown. The expedition was led by Igor Dyatlov, a resourceful student whose meticulous planning should have guaranteed success. For the first fortnight of their trek in the winter of 1959, everything went according to plan. They navigated the brutal landscape, documented their steady progress, and maintained high morale. Their final radio transmission, on February 1st, confirmed their good health and readiness for the final ascent toward Mount Otorden. Then, the communication ceased. When the planned check-in window closed, initial concern gave way to palpable dread as days stretched into a week without word. The official search, launched by the university and soon involving the Soviet military, finally located the group's abandoned campsite high on the northeastern slope of Kholat Syakhl, the local name for the mountain, chillingly translating to the Mountain of the Dead. What the search teams discovered was not the scene of an ordinary tragedy, but a perfect snapshot of sudden, absolute panic. The massive, reinforced tent, built to withstand severe Siberian blizzards, had been violently ripped open from the inside. Inside, all essential survival gear, warm clothing, food rations, and protective boots remained untouched. The 9 experienced hikers had bolted into a -20-degree night wearing nothing but socks, underwear, or thin shirts. The only evidence of their flight was a single set of footprints leading down the slope toward a sparse grouping of fir trees about a mile away. The critical contradiction that baffled investigators immediately: why flee a potentially warm tent into lethal cold without adequate protection? The implication was inescapable: whatever they were running from was more terrifying than death by freezing. Act 2, The Fire at the Tree Line. The search team tracked the frozen footprints down the slope until they reached the fir tree grove. Here, the physical evidence turned from baffling to deeply disturbing. Beneath the large, ancient fir, they found the first 2 bodies, Yuri Krivonischenko and Yuri Doroshenko. They lay dead from exposure, but their final actions screamed of desperation. Both were nearly naked, and their hands bore the raw, shredded evidence of a frantic, failed attempt to climb the tree. Branches were broken high up, suggesting one or both were trying to escape something lurking near or beneath them on the ground, or perhaps seeking a vantage point. Near the base of the tree, investigators found the remnants of a small, hastily constructed fire, long since extinguished by the frost. It was a pathetic final gesture, a brief, desperate spark against an overwhelming, silent cold. There were no signs of a struggle between the men, nor any marks suggesting an animal attack. They were clearly victims of shared, external panic. The mystery deepened as the search continued for the others. Logic suggested the remaining group would try to shelter or follow the first 2. Instead, the search parties had to look further down the slope, nearly half a mile away, where the remaining 7 hikers were eventually located in 3 separate clusters. Act 3, The Evidence That Shattered Logic. The next group discovered: Igor Dyatlov, Rustam Slobodin, and Lyudmila Dubanina were huddled together, as if drawing strength from proximity. Their physical state, however, proved that their terror had continued long after they left the tent. While Slobodin and Dyatlov had severe fractures, the state of Lyudmila Dubanina was utterly inexplicable. The official medical report cited massive, crushing fractures to her skull, injuries so severe they suggested a high-impact force, like a vehicle crash. Yet, the surrounding terrain offered no logical impact site. Stranger still, there were no corresponding external bruises or defensive wounds where the crushing occurred. It was an internal trauma, as if an invisible, immense pressure had squeezed her vital organs. Furthermore, her eyes and tongue were missing, pointing toward a bizarre, almost predatory, final assault. The investigating teams were now dealing with a scenario beyond standard mountaineering disaster. The injuries pointed toward either an unknown environmental phenomenon or an external, highly organized threat. The presence of massive, unexplained internal trauma, combined with the absence of struggle against other humans, created a chilling vacuum of possibility. Act 4, Radioactive Traces and Unspoken Fear. The final, grim discovery came weeks later, under the thawing spring snows, in a ravine further down the slope. The last 3 hikers, Alexander Kolevatov, Zinaida Kolmogorova, and Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles, were finally recovered. Kolmogorova also suffered fatal skull fractures. Thibault-Brignoles had severe chest trauma. But what cemented the international fascination with this case was the final forensic evidence, traces of radioactive contamination on the clothing of this last group. While the Soviets attempted to dismiss this as background radiation, the concentration in certain areas suggested something far more acute. The official Soviet inquiry of May 1959 closed abruptly, concluding vaguely that the group died due to a compelling natural force which they were unable to overcome. This conclusion was a political necessity, not a scientific finding. It failed to account for the torn tent, the missing organs, the internal-only fractures, or the radiation signature. The enduring shadow of Kholat Syakhl. Today, the Dyatlov Pass remains a magnet for those who seek answers beyond the textbook. The story continues to be retold, each telling adding a layer of potential horror. The sonic weapon theory, the most scientifically plausible theory, suggests the group may have stumbled upon secret Soviet military testing, perhaps a blast or a directed sonic weapon that caused instantaneous, massive internal barotrauma before the victims could react or seek cover. The extraterrestrial/paranormal factor, the eerie green light often associated with the area in later, sensationalized accounts, combined with the sheer irrationality of their flight, fuel speculation of paranormal involvement or an encounter with something truly alien to human understanding. The Stalker/human element, a more grounded, yet equally terrifying theory, suggests the hikers witnessed a violent event or were attacked by individuals, perhaps paramilitary or escaped convicts, who used unconventional weapons, explaining the bizarre, clean nature of the crushing injuries. The 9 students who set out on an adventure found themselves caught in the crosshairs of a sudden, overwhelming event. They had the instinct to survive, climbing trees, trying to build a fire, but they were fighting an enemy that struck without warning, injured them without visible impact, and drove them into the snow to die, silent witnesses to a horror that the cold, dead mountain refuses to speak about. Their tragic end serves as a perpetual warning: in the remote places of the earth, nature can be cruel, but the unknown can be infinitely worse.